Well, welcome to Demo 6, and in Demo 6, 7, and 8, actually all three of these demos, we're going to be looking at and reviewing functions, formulas, and equations, which many people find difficult to think through, but we're going to try to make it as easy to understand as possible in these three demos. Well, we're back at our grade book, and now it's time for me to figure out some grade totals and percentages here. So let's look at this particular grade total for Betty. We're going to add up the 5 grades that Betty has so far. You always start an equation or a function with an equal sign, followed by whatever you want to do. And in this case, I want to add these numbers together. So I'm going to use the actual numbers and just do a straight adding problem here, just like you would do on a calculator if you were to use a calculator. Once all the numbers are in, I just hit the enter key, turn, and I've got a score, 175 points total. Now, in this cell here right next to it, I'm going to do it a little bit differently. I'm going to use the cell names instead of what's in the cell, the raw numbers. So this is using the relative cell reference, what's called relative cell reference. Again, equal sign, but in this case I'm going to use B6 instead of 25. That's there. Notice the minute I use B6, a little line goes around B6 in a particular color. Hit the plus sign, and then I'm going to put in C6 plus E6, E6, F6. Each one a little different in the color just to identify what we're referring to in the equation. Hit the enter key. Same answer. Well, it should be the same answer. What's happening here is that the equation is just taking the value that's in B6 right now and adding it to the other values. So that works out well. One other way of doing this is by using the function, which is the sum function. Now, the sum function can be typed in, or it can be quickly gotten by using this symbol right up here. This is a Greek letter. It's called sigma. So if I hit the pull down here, I get sum, average, count, max, and min. So I'm just using sum, and watch what happens when I do that. There we go. The function is equal sum. Unfortunately, it also tries to figure out what you're trying to add up. What is the sum? And notice that it puts it in that like name box view where you have a starting position, a colon, and an ending position. So I could just as easily go in here right now, highlight that H, and change it to an F. Since G and H I don't want to be part of this sum, so I can just go type in an F, and notice it's selected those areas. Another way I could do that is to go and actually physically select what I want to add, which is the same thing, B6 through F6. So if you hit the sum button and what's there isn't correct, you can always highlight, click and drag, select the ones you want. So I hit the enter key, and there we go. Same value, 175 in each case. So which one should I use? Well, you might say, well, the sum's kind of easy and all, but there's a reason why you'd want to use either H, the sum of the 5 cells in this case by their names, or use I, which is the sum function and the beginning and ending. And the reason is this. What if I went over here to Betty's score on word 3 and changed it to a 40? Excel will automatically recalculate any equation that uses that cell. except in the case where you actually type the numbers in, as we did in the G example. So these two, H and I, appropriately go down 5 points because Betty lost 5 points when I recalculated her grade. Whereas the G won't change because it's still using up here in the formula bar 45. And it doesn't know to change that to 40. So I'm just going to clear those out by hitting the delete. Go over here to G6, and I'll actually just go up and use the sum function. So now because I'm at G6, notice it automatically just highlights what I want. B6 through F6. Hit the enter key, and there's the score. Now I can copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste, copy all the way down. Unfortunately, that's not all that simple, if particularly I have 30 or 40 people in this class. So using the pull handle that we did for the series also works for copying equations. And watch what happens. When I go down, release, now the totals for each one of the students comes up based upon their row of information, because when you copy a formula or an equation, any relative cell references, in this case B6 and F6, change appropriately as you move. So since I'm moving down and going to a higher number row, notice B6 changes to B7, to B8, to B9, to B10, so do the Fs. They automatically move because I moved one cell down, or I copied one cell down for each one of those. So this is our total. Might as well put that up here. Totals in place for the rows of numbers. Let's go down and work with the columns of numbers. And we're going to look for 4 different things. Possible points, we'll supply that. The average for the assignment, calculated. The maximum value in the column, and the minimum value in the column. Notice each time as I hit the enter key, these 4 cells took on the format of the cells above them. So we're going to shrink those down just a little bit, take them down to about 12, and we're going to put them on the right hand side, positioning on the right. Well, the possible points, that's just information that I'll give, and each one of these I'm typing in and using my arrow key to move to the next cell, and that secures all of those. Now the average, if you remember just a little bit ago, I said the average is right there in that sum function pull down. It's one of the functions in that area. So we'll call on average to help us out here. Notice it's equal average, but it only grabs the cell right above it, B13. And the reason is there's a space between B13 and the rest of the numbers. So when you do something out of that particular group, it's grabbing either above or to the left as far as it can go before it runs into either a text word or a blank cell. So here I'm going to select B6 through B11, and notice it shows up in the parentheses. Hit the enter key, and there's the average for those scores. Maximum, same thing's going to happen here when I click on max. It's basically going to look for the maximum of what's right above it. Well, there's only 2 cells right above it, but once again I will select those 6 cells, hit the enter key, the maximum shows up, as well as now the minimum. So being confident of these 3 functions that I've created, I'm now going to use all 3 at the same time and drag the pull handle fill handle across to the right under each one of the columns. And there we have the information for each column. The only thing that's going to be changed here is we would do well to change these averages to a smaller number of decimal points. Notice the 25 average automatically grabbed some decimal points when it came out on that issue. So that's one of the ways that we can look at the information and very quickly put the information into a function that gives us answers that we can analyze statistically.